Alright, we've talked about a few training camp battles that the Lakers might have in their rotation, either for a starting lineup spot, a rotation spot, simply playing time in general. We've talked about guys like Austin Reeves and Marcus Smart, Rui Hachimura and Jarred Vanderbilt, even guys like Jackson Hayes and Maxi Kleber. But one that we have not talked about yet is a potential battle between Marcus Smart and Rui Hachimura, which although might sound a bit confusing as they play different positions, Rui Hachimura being more of a power forward or small forward, Marcus Smart being more of a shooting guard or point guard. But for the Lakers starting lineup and how big they already are without Hachimura, already having DeAndre Ayton who's 7 foot, LeBron who's 6'9", 6'10", Luka who's 6'7" or 8, Austin being about 6'5", I'm not sure they really need Hachimura in there for height. They're simply looking for the best fit and likely the best defensive fit that can help out Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James so they don't have to take on difficult defensive matchups. And well, that's kind of the role that Hachimura was forced into last season, despite not being a great fit for it. If we take a look at matchup difficulty and how it graded out by player for the Lakers last season, Jarred Vanderbilt had the most difficult matchups, having an A grade defensive difficulty. Gabe Vincent was next with an A- graded difficulty, followed by Hachimura with also an A-, then with Austin Reeves having a B+, followed by LeBron having a C+, Luka Doncic having a C-, Jackson Hayes having a C, and Dalton Knecht having a C- as well. And well, that's completely fine for both Jarred Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent, but definitely not for Hachimura and Austin Reeves. I'd like to see Hachimura have about a B grade difficulty at best, Austin Reeves having a C graded difficulty matchup on defense, and for a guy like Marcus Smart, who also had an A- graded difficulty, to be taking on those matchups instead. So that's something you can point to with Marcus Smart, is the better option for that on defense, is the more skilled defender, coming off a season of defending pretty much every position on the court, and yes, even fives at times too. Obviously that's not what you want him doing, but he definitely did match up 1 through 4 on the court, guarding point guards roughly 21% of the time, shooting guards roughly 28% of the time, small forwards 22% of the time, power forwards 20% of the time, and centers roughly 9% of the time. So if you're worried about replacing Hachimura with Marcus Smart due to defensive reasoning or simply not being big enough on defense, then probably don't be. Marcus Smart, despite being 6'3" or 6'4", is a very physical defender, a guy that can match up with bigger players than he is and actually do a pretty good job at it too. I mean, if we're talking about not only defensive versatility but defensive impact, Marcus Smart grades out pretty well here too. Now, maybe not as good compared to back in 2021-22 when he won Defensive Player of the Year, but he's still pretty effective on defense. Whether you're talking about defensive playmaking ability, steals per game, simply taking on one-on-one matchups, and on-ball defense, he's still pretty effective. Coming off a season of averaging 1.1 steals per game in 20 minutes per game, that translating to 2.1 per 36 minutes, having a plus 0.1 defensive BPM, which although might not sound great, that's compared to Hachimura having a negative 0.6 defensive BPM, Smart still taking on the tougher matchups and taking on the more versatile matchups on defense, and still grading out better. Or if you want to talk about simply value on defense and how Marcus Smart graded there, he was pretty effective, ranking in the 95th percentile for off-ball chaser defense, 95th percentile in passing lane defense, 95th percentile in defensive playmaking ability, 95th percentile in defensive positional versatility, all around making plays on defense and showing off his value on defense too, even last season where he wasn't particularly healthy. However, is that alone enough to put him in the starting lineup over Hachimura, or is there maybe some more factors that we're not adding in here with him? Well, in my opinion, I think it's a pretty strong argument, but definitely not the only argument. In my opinion, I think they should be looking for defense here, rather than offense or simply the guy that's been there the longest. I think you definitely should and will factor that into it. Hachimura being a part of this starting lineup for the better part of 2 years now, definitely proving to be an effective offensive fit with their team, playing off ball with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic now, even Austin Reeves throughout that entire time frame. Definitely value to be had there with Hachimura. Though if we're talking about defense, then obviously the better fit and the better value player here would be Marcus Smart. Can take on tougher matchups on defense, can take on the matchups that neither LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, or even Rui Hachimura himself can take on, and would put them more in their natural position on defense too, even for Hachimura coming off the bench then too. Like I said though, that's not the only thing to factor in here. Again, I probably would call it the most important thing and the thing they need in their starting lineup the most at this point, but we obviously have to factor in offense here too. And well, between Hachimura and Marcus Smart, I would call Hachimura the better pick and definitely the better fit between them. I mean, if you're pairing guys around Luka Doncic, LeBron, and Austin, obviously they need some off-ball shooting gravity around them, guys to pull players away from them and thus make it easier to get to the rim and drive and kick, and Marcus Smart's not exactly great at doing that. I wouldn't call him an offensive liability, definitely not that, but I also wouldn't call him a great three-point shooter or a great offensive player in general. No, definitely not a bad one, can create his own shot, can even playmake for others, but isn't very good outside the three-point line. You know, only a 32.4% career three-point shooter, only a 35% corner three-point shooter. Again, not a liability, not terrible, but obviously not great. Isn't the ideal off-ball player to have with Luka Doncic and LeBron. Isn't the guy that's going to attract a ton of attention away from them. Isn't a guy that's always going to be monitored by the defense and have a guy attached to his hip to then free up their offense and space their offense more. That would be more on par with Rui Hachimura, who, although he himself is not a deadly three-point shooter, isn't an off-ball shooting threat like a Klay Thompson or anything like that, but is a pretty efficient offensive player that does know how to play with LeBron James and Austin Reeves pretty well, and even Luka Doncic at this point too. Coming off a season and a very efficient season averaging 13 points per game, shooting 51% from the field, 41% from 3, roughly 77% from the free throw line, all around knows how to play with Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves, knows when to stay at the three-point line and catch and shoot, knows when to make a backdoor cut, is a very good open court player and definitely likes to get out and run with LeBron James and Luka Doncic. All around is a pretty good fit for them and definitely draws attention away from them, even though not quite to the level of again, Klay Thompson or somebody at that off-ball level. But he has proven to be a good fit, is a good fourth or fifth scoring option next to them, can both play on the ball, off the ball, is a good cutter, and all around a pretty good off-ball fit next to them. So in that regard, I would give the offensive edge here to Rui Hachimura over Marcus Smart. Now maybe that would be different if they didn't have such great playmaking already. If they didn't have either one of Luka Doncic or LeBron, then maybe Marcus Smart's playmaking ability might be a bit more valued here. But with already Luka Doncic, LeBron, and Austin on the court to do plenty of playmaking for their team, they more so need three-point shooting and off-ball gravity away from them, which I would give to Hachimura here definitively over Marcus Smart. So kind of 1 point for Hachimura, 1 point for Marcus Smart, kind of the bigger point as they need more defense in my opinion, but there definitely is an argument to be made for both the defense and the offense, one having more of each, so I guess it comes down to a combination of durability, team continuity, what they need more on the court, and what they're currently lacking in their starting lineup, or simply to make the rotation fit better. That's what it comes down to here in my opinion. And well, if you're talking about durability, this one definitely does go to Hachimura again, playing roughly 60 games for their team last season, playing 68 for their team during the 2023-24 NBA season. Meanwhile, Marcus Smart playing a grand total of 54 games in that 2-year duration, only playing 34 games last season, and only playing 20 games during the 2023-24 NBA season. So definitely not a model of health or an Iron Man for the past few years now. You know, he was pretty healthy and durable back with Boston, but that's definitely not been the case lately. So while Hachimura himself has not been a model of health either and definitely has gone through a few various injuries, he definitely has been more durable than Marcus Smart. So I would give the health edge to Hachimura here, which in my opinion is an often overlooked factor of creating a good, reliable starting lineup. Obviously, if you're going to build team continuity in a good, reliable rotation, then your starting lineup has to be the foundation of that. So with Marcus Smart, that may or may not be an issue, not being very healthy lately, and thus it might be an issue if they're trying to put him in their starting lineup. So I would factor that in here between himself and Rui Hachimura. And well, that definitely does translate to team continuity. If he can't stay on the court and thus their starting lineup can't stay together on the court, then that might be an issue for team continuity and building chemistry throughout the entire regular season. Not only for their starting lineup, but then their rotation as well. If you move Hachimura to coming off the bench, then you probably want to keep him there to get comfortable. Don't want to keep flip-flopping him between the starting lineup and coming off the bench. That tends to mess with the role player and does put them in a very good, comfortable state in your rotation. So you definitely want to make a decision early with this and not go back and forth between it. So factoring that in here, I definitely would maybe think about keeping Hachimura in the starting lineup. If you're trying to maintain team continuity and not change things around too much, then maybe at least early on to bring Marcus Smart off the bench. That's something you can make an argument here for and something you could point Hachimura to stay in their starting lineup. But then finally for overall fit and what their starting lineup currently needs and maybe what their bench unit needs more of, for their starting lineup I definitely would point to defense. I mean, again, between the four of Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Rui Hachimura, not a whole lot of defense there and not a whole lot of primary defensive options. I think they definitely need one, whether you want to point to Marcus Smart or Jared Vanderbilt. You know, I think the direction that many are going with Marcus Smart is the fact that he's very good defensively, maybe not as good or as versatile compared to Vanderbilt, but is not a borderline offensive liability, which is why many go with Marcus Smart over Jared Vanderbilt here. Then for their bench unit, as it currently stands, they do have Marcus Smart, Gabe Vincent, Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jackson Hayes, and well, that's obviously more defense than it is offense, so theoretically if you would flip Hachimura with Marcus Smart, it would actually make more sense and fit better for both their starting lineup and their bench unit too. Again, not saying I definitively go in that route, but I do get where people are coming from. If you're going to make that switch, I definitely wouldn't be entirely against it. I think fit-wise, it does make a lot of sense, would address a defensive need for the Lakers starting lineup, would address an offensive punch need coming off the bench unit. I think it would actually make their bench unit and starting lineup fit and rotate a lot better in regard to rotation, so I wouldn't be entirely against it at all. But if you factor in the durability, team continuity, reliability, especially offensively, then you can make a pretty good argument to keep Hachimura in there too. However, if you would ask me to make the final decision and gave me the final decision to make here with it, I probably would flip out Hachimura with either Marcus Smart or Jared Vanderbilt. Simply put, I think the Lakers starting lineup needs more defense. I mean, I don't want to keep watching Austin Reeves have to take on difficult matchups and not be able to do it. That's not fair to him, that's not fair to their starting lineup, and I think they need a better defensive option in there, which could either be Marcus Smart or Jared Vanderbilt. I'd really be fine with both. And don't get me wrong, I really do like Rui Hachimura. In fact, I think this switch would actually be a good thing for him and definitely not viewed as a demotion for him. I mean, I think the fit would actually be better for him and probably would help him out and he wouldn't give him a whole lot less of playing time. Likely would still finish games for their team, likely would still play around 30 to 32 minutes per game for their team simply off the bench, rather than start the game for them, and would actually make their rotation fit a whole lot better in my opinion too. So with all of that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about a potential battle between Marcus Smart or Rui Hachimura for the starting lineup? Do you think the Lakers should or will make the switch between them? Do you think it would benefit their rotation, make their rotation fit better, and would ultimately be the best move for their team to make or not make? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.